Yeah, because I feel like, so the first time I got kicked out of school, I was like in first grade. And I remember sitting there and the teacher's like, yeah, like we just care so much about you, blah, blah, blah. I want to care about your future. And I'm like, you care about my future so much, you're going to kick me out of school? I was like, that's weird. I was like, don't you, if you care about something, you don't go, hey, German Shepherd, I love you so much. Get the f out of my house.
Did it, Air Bud?
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Air Bud.
And welcome back to the most conspiratorial edition of The Careful Boys. Today featuring Mr. Matt Kim.
Hey.
Yeah, Matt. We're a serious news channel, guys. Serious news only.
Serious news only.
Serious news only. All right. All right. That being said, put so eloquently in one of our other videos that you have to watch, even though it may come out after this one. When did you first see the crack in the matrix? Go ahead. Let them know what a crack in the matrix is.
Well, the crack in the matrix is seeing through the establishment lies, seeing through the irregularities of the world, that we are not living a reality that we are told we are living. I think that's the matrix, and I think a lot of people are waking up to it. It's just a matter of when do you wake up, and what's the first thing that you see that makes you aware?
What was the first thing that you saw?
Does that mean you're woke?
I think that's what it is.
Well, that's what it was back then. Woke meant something cool.
That's what it used to be, yeah.
It got deboed.
Yeah.
Well, I think what woke is a lot of people, you know, seeing the crack for the first time. They're angry, they're confused, and they're acting very quickly to that whatever, right? But there's co-ops, meaning like there are programs in the CIA and whatever, they infiltrate these activist ideals, and then you might be actually just parroting or repeating things that's intended for you to pretend that you're an activist and you're not doing anything.
It's the Matrix programs that said you woke up, but you're
an
actually
agent
still
yourself.
in the
Exactly.
PSYOP.
PSYOP, yeah, but that's a PSYOP. But
Yeah. Awake.
But I think that's woke culture, right? Is like you're just getting started and you're kind of misled. You have all this misdirected anger and you're fighting the wrong people because you think they're the opposition. And I think that's how the idea of wokeism, kind of like pseudo-intellectualism, a lot of just lightweight, you know, you just read a BuzzFeed article's title and all of a sudden you're a feminist or like whatever, you know, it's like, yeah.
It's happening by the dozens.
Look at your hands.
Yeah.
All right, so when was your first crack in the Matrix?
I think COVID was really the one that put me over the edge. I think for a lot of people, right? Because before that, I always questioned a little bit, like the way I think has always been the way I think.
Did you think 9/11 happened?
Not anymore.
This guy doesn't.
Yeah, I definitely
He's
don't
pointing
think
at him on camera. The camera angle is tilted, and he's pointing at this
I
guy.
definitely don't think it's anymore. I definitely think that was a CIA operation.
What about even like older, like Pearl Harbor?
Oh yeah, that Pearl Harbor, the government knew that they were going to attack. So they didn't create the attack.
Yeah.
They antagonized Japan like crazy.
They need it so
They
that we
need
have
it
an
to
excuse to jump in.
If you have a brand new technology, you need a reason to test your technology.
Sock my homie so I could pull my gun out.
Exactly. So I don't think and I think there's a lot of proof to show that also. I don't think it was something they planned. At least 9/11, that's a little bit different. But Pearl Harbor, I don't think they intentionally did it, but they definitely allowed it to happen. And I think that's crazy that the U.S. government will use and let these things happen to its citizens. Right? That's the most messed up part of it. But we know this throughout history that they've done it.
Vietnam.
Programs like MK Ultra, which is a real program that really existed, where they were using LSD to test and change the way people think and react. It's a real program that 100% existed. Things like Project Mockingbird, which is a real thing, where they were infiltrating the media to change the way people perceive the news and the world. This is a real program that really existed. People call it the Mockingbird media because, I mean, again, these are factual things that happened.
Yeah, but the weirdest thing to me is there's actual evidence, there's paperwork, there's files directly from the CIA and FBI that are open source, you can read it. And they go, "Oh, you're crazy, you're a conspiracy theorist." And I'm like, "Why?" It's factual. Like, it's not, I don't know why they think that it's fake when it's on the website, the FBI website. So, where do you think that comes from? Like, why are people still denying, even if you say, and even if they can't go ahead and click and read the past, what do you call it? Like the paperwork that they have that's on the records.
I mean, that's how powerful the media really is, right? They can let you know the truth, but they can make you believe that the truth you know isn't real. That's how powerful they really are. And the craziest thing right now is that the New York Times is considered the keeper of history for the United States, right? So if you want to know what happened 50 years ago, you find the New York Times archives and they tell you what happened. And if that's what you read, that's really what happened. They are now weaponizing something that's supposed to be independent affairs in New York Times, and they're rewriting history. Because in 100 years, the future generations will remember history today as New York Times wrote it. And that's why we should be very aware of what's going on. Because again, they can change the perspective and how even you and I were all remembered just by changing and printing certain things.
You know, it's one of the craziest things that I'm seeing change right now, and I never thought it would be like that, is how we view MLK as a holiday. Have you guys read any of the recent stuff? So like growing up as a kid, it's always like, okay, cool, you get the Monday off, and he's viewed as a huge martyr for the cause, for equality and all that. So much so that when the whole BLM movement was gaining crazy traction in COVID, their narrative was all other ethnicity, races, minorities have to pay homage to the blacks and MLK because we fought for rights that you guys get to benefit from. Have you guys heard that narrative? Yeah. Right? So that was like the thing. I was like, so everyone's got to be, if you are a person of color, you got to be on the BLM train. Now the exact same people are almost like flipping it, because I just read comments of people like arguing back and forth, and then now they're like, oh no, that guy was like he was a womanizer. He was also, some people even call him a forceful penetrator, and then and then they're like people talking about how like the FBI never want him to come up, but then now they made a holiday out of him. And then so there's a lot of like what it seems like pro BLM pages that are actually shitting on MLK, and that he's not the person that is going out.
So who are they who are
I don't know, but I was just like, dude, this is literally me seeing history get rewritten in front of me, and I'm like, if this progresses in 5 years, people are not going to view MLK the way we grew up.
You know when we really first saw it change? Remember Christopher Columbus?
Yeah, that was a big one.
Yes, that was crazy.
And then it was like, you can't celebrate this because you're just kind of like, oh, I guess that makes hella sense. And now they don't like celebrate.
Yeah, because first it was like,
I was the tester.
Yeah.
I was the tester, and they were like, oh, it does work.
They can rewrite your past history. That's fucking crazy.
Well, it's because MLK was very anti-establishment. He was a very conservative guy.
Yeah, and he's so the pro BLM people are also like, that motherfucker was Republican the whole fucking time. Fuck that motherfucker.
I don't know if that's even confirmed, actually. I think that's a rumor. Like, I don't think he's ever talked about politics or said anything, but
he said that he believes the Democratic Party is corrupt, and his children have come out and said that they thought that his father was the same, but he never picked a side.
No, he never picked a side. No, but because back then, black in the South were Republicans because Abraham Lincoln was Republican. Yeah. It was until it was what's his name who changed it to Democrat. He's Lyndon B. Johnson. He's the president who got a lot of the black vote to go Democrat because he was doing all sorts of like programs like welfare and things to kind of like dangle the carrot in front of the poor communities. But there's something called a Dixiecrat, which is like a Democrat in the deep South, and they were the KKK. A lot of them. Because the thing is, like, yeah, history changes, but people change, right? Like, and what I mean by that is like, the same Democratic Party today is not even the same one from 10 years ago because people die, people leave the party, whatever, right? Same with the right. Like, it's not the same group. There's different groups within the group that takes control. And for some reason, a lot of people don't get that. They see it as one party, the same philosophy, the same type of group from the fucking dawn of time. And I'm like, dude, we didn't even have like the Republican Party or the Democrat. I think before that it was like Federalist and something else. So we didn't even have that group. So I'm like, it's so funny how people see history though, and how it's written and how they're like, it's only one way. And it's like, nah, dude, there's probably 10 different ways you can see the same story. Yeah. I think for me, the crack in the matrix actually happened in elementary school, because I was questioning so many things and no one could really give me a straight up answer. And I just was obsessed.
Do you remember the first thing that you questioned?
One of them was, how come I have to go to school? And then, you know, parents, teachers, everyone was like, oh, you want to do your homework, get a good grade. But, you know, when you're a kid, all that shit sucks. I'm like, I don't want to do any of this stuff. And they're like, well, you want to get a good job because you don't want to be homeless. And I'm like, oh. And I'm like, and I see my friends passing out newspapers. And I'm like, how come I can't pass out newspapers? They're passing out newspapers. And then they're like, oh, well, you want to go to college and get a good job. My dad's a musician. So I'm like, did you go to college? He goes, yeah, I studied a little bit. And I'm like, do you need a degree to do what you do? And he goes, no, I have my own music school. And I'm like, my mom has a degree, but she works at a dentist office, but she's not a dentist. So it was just, my mind just couldn't get like, wait, so all these people close to me are successful. My uncle's a pastor or whatever. They don't have these degrees, but they're doing well. Why do I have to go do this for the next like 10 plus years? And no one could answer that for me. So then I think just like, I never equated school to riches or people that were successful. We knew a family friend that owned a trucking company. He was a multi-millionaire, never went to school, just immigrant story, you know, straight from Japan, working at a tire company, and then he worked his way out, built a logistics company. And so since I knew all this stuff, I was like, well, the path to riches is actually just like owning your own business or like doing your own commerce, right? So like I would do things like door-to-door chocolate sales or whatever, just trying to be rich that way. But I think from that point on, it was like I would just obsess and try to get the answer until I was satisfied. And I realized that a lot of people just don't know. Like it's hard to follow an adult because a lot of them do talk stupid. Yeah.
There was a study done in the 70s and 80s, and I'm going to butcher it because I don't remember the names, I don't remember the exact numbers, but the premise
don't tell the real shit for anyone.
is valuable. So NASA, with a different research group, they studied the habits of maybe like 100 or 1,000 kids that they thought were genius, maybe like 5-year-olds. And they just monitored them. Every few years, they would check in and test their IQ. At 5 years old, 98% of them were genius. A few years later, they go back in, it's like 80%. A few years back, they go again, and it's like 70%. They go again when they're like teenagers, 50%. By the time they graduate high school, it's like 10%. NASA was trying to figure out how do you create genius, but their study was showing them that are all losing genius. They ended up scrapping the whole program, the whole study. The researcher that had been doing that study the entire time decided that she was going to continue, figure out what's really going on here. Her conclusion at the end of this entire study was that school and the indoctrination of school was removing children's creativity. And the removal of creativity was killing kids' genius. I probably butchered it somewhere, but that's really the premise of the story. Is that you need to let children and you need people to think for themselves, be creative, think outside the box, because these are the things that expands people's minds and makes you think at a higher level. Once you restrict people, and that's why you have the narratives going on in the world, that's why you put people into the matrix, because they're easier to be controlled. And you don't want them to break away, because once you start letting people think for themselves, people can start having good ideas. And you don't, if you're in a position where you want to control, you don't want people to have their own ideas. That could be really annoying, right? So therefore, you put everyone under some sort of control, and you make a nice, comfortable, watch more Netflix, watch more YouTube, like turn your brain off and just consume.
I knew school was making me dumber, bro. I felt it. I was like, there's something wrong with this place.
But it is. If you were given the ability to expand and think for yourself in school, like everyone's minds and the way they perceive the world would be different. Which is why that's why the more educated you are, the more liberal you tend to be. Because they've removed all creativity from your life.
You know what's funny is that even that, like, I remember the left and the liberal and everyone being more creative. Like, it was the party for the artist, the underdog. It used to be like, you know, we're anti-establishment, and then all of a sudden it's this like, hey, let's fall in line, let's follow orders, let's be pro-war. I was like, what the fuck? This is not the same party that I grew up like thinking, yeah, like this is the group that's against a lot of that, you know, rigid ideal. But now it's actually being like rigid in a different way of like, you have to be culturally like us. You can't believe in anything else besides what we do, or else you're a racist or this and that. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening? But seeing the shift is interesting because like, it's like you see a different party in as your teens and 20s. And then you go into your like 40s and you're like, wait a minute, this is not the same group.
I have a really good friend, Arthur Kwan, who is a oil painter, phenomenal artist. And during 2020, he was the fastest rising, most popular fine artist in the entire country. He was getting awards. He was selling his paintings for $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a pop. Every gallery in New York, they all wanted to have his art. It's like phenomenal stuff. At the summer of 2020, they said, hey, you're the Asian guy. We have a black artist that we really like and we like to promote. Why don't you guys do a BLM thing together? And he's like, no, I don't want to. Like, no, like, you guys should do it. And he was like, no, like, I really don't want to. Like, I think it's bullshit. Immediately after that meeting, they removed him from all the art galleries. They canceled him. They kicked him out of all the studios, and he can't get a job in anything in the art industry any longer. Wow. He went from the most fastest rising artist in the entire country to like canceled just because he wouldn't comply. Happened just like that for him. Yeah. And you guys would love this guy. Crazy. So smart.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's why it's good to be like 7th place. Yeah. You don't have the best sponsors, but then you also don't have to answer to sponsors. You know, it's like,
hey, that's where we're at, baby. Lucky number 7.
They're sponsored by Nike. We're sponsored by Payless, but just it's cool, you know. That we still got shoes on at the end of the day.
You know what's crazy is just not even like, I understand tribalism in humans, right? They're gonna pick their side. They're gonna fight for what they believe in. Everyone has their own morals. But I was talking about this with Hannah, and we were like, you know, when we were a kid and you're just watching politicians debate and whatever, and you're like in junior high or whatever, and you're like, why the fuck are these guys lying? And I'm like, yeah. She would say the same thing. She goes, I thought everyone just believed it was a lie, but they just kind of like was okay with it. And then we grew up as adults and we're like, wait, people actually believe that this stuff for face value? And so we were like, maybe that's why we were like weird kids, right? Because to me, I thought it was obvious. You watch these debates, you watch the primaries, and you're just like, why are these guys constantly lying? And you can see it in their facial expressions and how they're saying something. And then like, I'm like, why do you actually believe that they are standing for what they're saying? That's crazy to me. But I realized that we're the odd ones that think this way or saw that as children, right? I don't know. Did you guys see that?
Growing up, my dad would always be like, don't trust none of this shit. He's like, they're all fucking talking shit. He's like, he would have no reasons why, but like, he would just have a healthy distaste for, you know, anything.
Yeah, he's probably right.
Yeah, he's like, you think the president does anything? He's like, I don't know what the fuck they're doing.
When you guys saw any of that stuff, it didn't make you go, what the fuck is this?
No, I think because of that, I just had the default thinking of like, I ain't listening to this shit.
So your dad taught you early.
Yeah, and my uncles. My uncles would always tell me, like, one of my uncles was like super into history, and he'd always be like, yeah, see, this is what they tell you, but in reality, this is what it really is. So I think I just came from a family of conspiracy theorists without any good theories, though.
I came from a family of people that just took it at face value, you know? So when I see people that are kind of completely indoctrinated by a system and believe what they're told, like, I understand that. Because if you're told your entire life that this is the truth, like, why do you have any reason to believe otherwise?
Especially if everyone around you also believes it as the truth.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if you're told that the news is real and that the government cares about you, then why would you question otherwise? Like, it makes no sense. It takes a lot to figure out, like, holy shit, they were lying to me the whole entire time. It's not a conclusion that you come to on your own if you're not really actively seeking it.
Unless you're like genetically that way.
Yeah, some people just question everything.
Yeah, because I feel like, so the first time I got kicked out of school, I was like in first grade. And I remember sitting there and the teacher's like, yeah, like we just care so much about you, blah, blah, blah. I want to care about your future. And I'm like, you care about my future so much, you're going to kick me out of school? I was like, that's weird. I was like, don't you, if you care about something, you don't go, hey, German Shepherd, I love you so much. Get the fuck out of my house.
They did it, Airbud.
You know what I mean?
Airbud.
You want to hold things you care about as close as possible, like monitor them close as possible. Yeah. Like, I'm like, okay, Mrs. Darby, if you really cared about me, put my desk next to your desk.
Damn, Miss Darby.
Put my desk further and further away from your desk till I'm on the outside of the classroom.
That's true.
I'm like, yeah, you really care about me out here. Yeah. You know what I think? So that sort of made me go like,
that's true,
everything is kind of like theatrical. You know, a lot of things, it's like, this doesn't really make sense. And so I think at a very young age, but like any of the conspiracy stuff, politics, I would just hear it and I'm like, oh, boring, you know, so I never really looked into it, but I did feel a lot of like contradictory shit going on, and I just felt like genetically I was like, because my whole family's like that. My dad and mom's side, they're very, follow the narrative, be a good boy, go to school, do all that kind of shit, you know, and I'm just like.
Sounds like a song you guys wrote.
Yeah. But I was like, but man, none of this shit fucking makes sense. You guys are weird.
And amongst Asian families specifically, I don't think that comes from a bad place in their heart, right? We're here in this country, we're trying to, you know, make our family and future generations survive in this new world. These are the rules that are set. Let's just comply and try to do the best we can for society, right? Best we can to fit in. That's the heart that they have in telling you to be compliant with everything going on. I don't think they're trying to indoctrinate you and turn you into a sheep. I don't think that's their objective or goal. I think this is what they think is for your better benefit.
Yeah.
But the reality is that teaching you to think for yourself would have been the better benefit. You know, so I think it's a calculated error, but not done from a place of malice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I actually don't think a lot of Asian families are capable of thinking for themselves. It's not their fault. I think they don't even teach that in Asia. It's a very Western way to develop individualism, and the philosophy that we have here, it doesn't really exist until you go out of your way in Asia.
But even Westerners watch a lot of news and they just take it, they go, uh-huh.
But I think that goes back to what we talked about before, is that even though Asian culture itself is a compliant culture, of that, we are descendants of the people that want to stand up and say no.
Yeah,
they end up here.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
Because somewhere down the road, we're like, no, this is bullshit. We want better opportunity.
Yeah.
So it's in our blood. You know, it's just about finding it within yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's why Asian people specifically are someone that campaigns possibly should be really concerned about. Because it's the group that can wake up the fastest. Also Latino culture. Because in their
biggest voting bloc.
Yeah, the Latino culture is very conservative in their heart. They believe in strong family values. They believe in working hard, just like Asians do. And they're here and they all skew very establishment. But it's because that's the only thing they know. The Asian news is extremely liberal, extremely establishment. The Latino news is extremely establishment. There's no like other side option for them. But once people realize and slowly wake up, because even with like Trump, being a Trump supporter has somehow become the new punk rock.
Which is so weird. I never thought Republican would be punk rock. I never thought comedians would be like right wing.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't that long ago where it was just hardcore evangelicals on the right. You can't even cuss. And now it's the party of like First Amendment. What the fuck?
Of
That's
Kid Rock?
So weird. So weird. Yeah. But it is what it is, man. Things keep changing.
I'm just glad there's more 9/11 deniers in the room.
Let's go! We're Steve Green, man.